This episode is brought to you by HASA. Liquid is clearly better. Liquid chlorine is the highest purity, works immediately, has no added cyanuric acid or calcium, and it will leave your pool safe, clean, and clear. And by the bottom feeder professional grade battery powered vacuum system. It sucks to clean pools, so cleaning pools sucks less. Get $100 off with code DVB100.
This episode is brought to you by Skimmer, the #1 pool service software in North America. With Skimmer, you can streamline your schedule, grow your revenue, and keep your customers coming back with 5-star service. Whether you're a one-person operation or an established team, Skimmer is your partner in success. Visit getskimmer.com/poolguy to try Skimmer for free for 30 days.
The Pool Guy Podcast Show. The Pool Guy Podcast Show. The Pool Guy Podcast Show.
Hi, welcome to the Pool Guy Podcast Show. In this episode, I'm going to talk to you about ways to save time out in your pool route that are really practical. These are things that you can implement right away that will shave off sometimes several minutes to even hours of your day or week, I should say, out there on your pool route. Are you a pool service pro looking to take your business to the next level? Join the Pool Guy Coaching Program. Get expert advice, business tips, exclusive content, and get direct support. For me, I'm a 35-year veteran in the industry. Whether you're starting out or scaling up, I've got the tools to help you succeed. Learn more at swimmingpoollearning.com. Of course, it would be great to save hours per day, but I'll just stretch it over to the whole week. That way you can get an idea of how much time you can save. A little bit each day kind of adds up across the whole week, and it does make your life a lot better. I'll start with the first one, which is really important, and that is if you spend a lot of time picking up your supplies, that's a problem, because there are ways to speed it up. You can email the order in. You can, of course, make sure that you have a good supply of parts in your garage. That's something that I always do. When I buy parts, I always double or triple purchase, and that way I have plenty of supplies on hand. Because the last thing you want to do is to stop in at your supplier or Leslie's Pool Supply, let's say, to pick up one little thing, and you're waiting in line or you're waiting there for 20 or 30 minutes when you should have had the part to begin with. So have a good inventory of parts in your garage, and of course, be able to catalog what you have. What I like doing is taking the O-rings that I purchase and then taking a Sharpie and writing on there exactly what that O-ring is for. I have a video that I filmed on YouTube a long time ago showing all the spare parts I carry, and they're usually in containers separated by categories like automatic cleaner parts, O-rings, and I have them clearly marked with a Sharpie so I know what O-ring is for what. Sometimes you can't really read that number, the SPG0039, you don't know what O-ring that is, but having it clearly marked helps you there. So having those, and also, again, emailing your supplier so that everything is ready on the dock for you. You just load your truck and go. That's the key thing to keep things moving fast and not having to stop in to get anything. Really saves you a lot of time out there. Also, don't run out of anything. This sounds kind of weird, and I'm talking about chlorine specifically, and this happens. I was out there, this happened more than once, where the pool guy's like, hey, can I borrow some shock? And I'm out of shock, and I don't want to stop at the store. And these are pool guys that I get to know that are like working across the street at another pool. Not a problem, but this is a key, and this happened to me myself. It's one of those things where you just get, I don't know if it was carelessness or I just was really busy, but I forgot to check to make sure I reloaded my truck. So have a routine where, of course, you check to make sure that every morning you have enough chlorine for the day. And I work at a small truck, so the bed's not the biggest. If you have like an F-150, this probably will never happen to you, but working out of a compact truck like a Nissan Frontier or a Honda Ridgeline, you have to be strategic of how much chemicals you can put in there. So one thing you would always want to have on your truck is a 25 or 50-pound bucket of Cal Hypo or dichlor. This is like your backup chlorine that you never take off your truck, and you make sure that it's always full. So dichlor is great. I like it because it is something that lasts a very long time, and it's something that also has some cyanuric acid stabilizer in. And so if you're using it for, let's say, a salt pool or a pool that you need to bring up the chlorine and stabilizer at the same time is perfect. But I like it because I don't use it for anything except emergency chemicals. And so that always stays in my truck. A 25-pound bucket of dichlor is great. Cal Hypo also works effectively as a backup chemical. And then you have your regular Cal Hypo that you're going to use at the pool stops, your liquid chlorine, your trichlor tablets if you're putting those in there as well. And you want to make sure you have plenty of everything. I also like to carry a few extra trichlor tablets. So I'll have a 50-pound bucket that I'll use, and I'll use up some of the tablets here and there. But the customer should, of course, if you have the route set up the way a lot of us do, where the customer has a 50-pound bucket of tablets at their property, using those tablets to recharge the pool's floater or inline chlorinator. But you want to have some extra trichlor tablets on hand, just in case you need one for in a pinch or something. So having that and making sure that you check your truck in the morning so that you're fully loaded with chlorine is going to save you an extra stop at your supplier to pick up chlorine, or you may bug another pool guy for a little bit of chlorine. But the worst scenario, and ask me how I know this, is when you have like 4 or 5 pools left and you have like 2 gallons of liquid chlorine left on your truck and you have nothing else. And so it's one of those things where you're like, oh man, I hope this pool looks good coming up. And you're stressing over it, and you never want to go without chemicals and being able to shock the pool if you need to. So that's an important factor. And you want to make sure that, yes, you're stocked up with supplies and you also have enough chemicals on hand and on your property to make sure that you don't have to stop in at the supplier to get anything, because that is a huge waste of time when you should have had the chemicals or the part. And the Pool Guy Podcast Show has teamed up with UPA to bring you affordable, reliable liability insurance starting at just $64 a month. Get up to $2 million in coverage, and the members of my coaching group get an even lower rate. Protect your business and your peace of mind. Sign up with UPA today by clicking the link in the podcast description. Let me talk a little bit about logistics out there. It's always good to have your pool route kind of crossing over itself. What I mean by this is that, if you have, of course, 5 or 6 pools in a cul-de-sac, you're not going to split those up. But I really do like having the route kind of crisscross accounts. So let's say that I'm in a certain area and I'm doing some pools here, but on Thursday, this is a Tuesday, let's say, on Thursday, there's a similar area with a bunch of other pools on other streets. And the reason why you want to have crossover is that sometimes you're going to stack pools. Let's say you want to take a day off, or the 4th of July is coming up and you want to move pools so you can have a 4-day weekend. When you have a lot of crossover with accounts, you can actually move pools pretty easily from Tuesday to, say, Thursday, and vice versa. Also, if there's a problem, you can always circle back pretty rapidly to those pools that cross over. So rarely will I be like in an area where I can't be in another area. Now, there are some instances where you can't do that, of course, and maybe a Friday has no crossover. You can't go back to a pool on a Tuesday because Friday is a part of your route where you're out of that area. But in most cases, if you can have some crossover built in to your pool route, that's really helpful when you have to go back to a pool or move a pool. And it comes in handy to be able to do that without driving like 20 minutes out of your way. And speaking about driving 20 minutes out of your way, all those outlying pools should be the first ones that you're dropping when you get a new pool that's closer to your route. Those outlying pools where you're driving, unless you're, of course, in like rural Texas where driving 20 minutes between pools is normal. But here in Los Angeles County, you don't want to drive 20 minutes to a pool because that's like, 40 minutes in traffic. So it's something to consider, and those pools that are outlying should be dropped as soon as possible so your route is tighter and tighter and you're not wasting time driving. Driving time is a big waste, in my opinion, and if you can fill that driving time with another service account, you're making money and you're not losing money by driving all these long distances between accounts. Here's one that I think you'll find interesting, and that is, I don't like emptying pump baskets on my route. I'll say this again. I don't like emptying pump baskets on my route, and so I'll set the pools up to where that's a very minimal task. It takes time Sometimes priming the pool is a pain. Sometimes problems arise when you're trying to prime it when you take the pump lid off. A lot of times you may have to run out to your truck to change the O-ring on top. So these are things you can avoid by simply setting up your pools to where emptying out the pump basket is kept to a minimum. Here's how you do it. You want to equip all those pools with small particle debris with the filter saver skimmer socks. And these are devices that are kind of a cloth material that you put in the skimmer basket. And this definitely helps keep all the small debris from getting to the skimmer basket into the pump basket. I highly recommend them. If you go to my website, swimmingpoollearning.com, you scroll down to the very bottom of the web page, you're going to see a tab that says Pool Guide Gear. So you're going to go in there, you're going to see my gloves, my glasses. Somewhere near the middle, you're going to see the Filter Saver Pool Socks 20-pack, and there's a link to Amazon to buy them. It's like $13 to buy 20 of these. I also recommend you put a good sized rock in the skimmer basket to hold it down from floating. It'll float even more with the skimmer sock in there, or skimmer saver, filter saver, because it's going to kind of create some buoyancy, because again, it's a piece of cloth. So definitely just put a rock in the bottom of the basket. Then I usually put the filter saver over it, and this is going to save you a lot of time in those pools with maybe dog hair, particle debris. Also, for your inline canister, if you do have particle debris, I don't recommend the Zodiac Cyclonic canister, nor would I recommend anything that's not a fine mesh like the Hayward W560. You want to get the Hayward 530 or the Pentair leaf trap with the fine mesh bag, and that way all the fine debris, dog hair, those kind of things get stuck in there or trapped in there, and they'll go right through into the pump basket. So that's kind of a key with a suction side cleaner using a canister. You would want to use a canister that won't let the fine debris in through the canister into the pump basket. If you do these two things on those pools where there's these particle debris or dog hair, things like that, it's not every account on your pool route that has this. A lot of accounts just have regular large leaf debris, but if you have like St. Augustine grass or anything that gets right through the skimmer basket, then you're going to be emptying the pump basket all the time, which is a time waster in my opinion. Now, you don't ignore the pump basket. You're going to glance at it to make sure that there's no debris in there, because sometimes things fail. The skimmer basket may lift up, or the canister may let a few things through. So you want to make sure that you clean it when necessary. But as a habit or as a rule, I don't take the pump lid off unless I have to. And this is something that you can implement pretty easily on your route to save you a lot of time turning off the pump, emptying the basket out. Sometimes, again, it takes a long time to prime the pump, wasting time out there and effort. You have to take the lid off again, dump the bucket of water again. You can avoid all this by implementing a system where the pump basket just stays clean each week. As part of that, you want to make sure that you have the filters on a particular cleaning cycle that's going to prevent the pools from having problems. What I mean by this is that you would want to clean all your filters in a scheduled fashion to avoid, of course, cleaning a filter in the middle of summer or having to clean a filter when you're really busy. And so try to block off a time. So here in Southern California, in my area, it really works best to clean the filters in March and then again in September, October. So there's a 6-month period, because in my area, it's all full-size V filters or the 4 cartridge quad filters or the System 3 filters. They're all full-size filters. We don't have any single bullet filters. Let's use an Aquastar pipeline, but that one takes like 4 minutes to clean. It's not a big factor. I'm talking about mainly if you're in an area where you have full-size filters. If you can schedule it for a 6-month period, March and April, and then September, October, and that way you're breaking down all the filters during that time. And the reason why I pick March and April is because typically it's pretty mild here, not much going on with the weather, it's not hot yet, and then you'll have the filters ready for the peak months of May, June, July, and August, and then things start tapering down in September. And so in October, cleaning the filters is ideal before the winds pick up here. And if they're scheduled like that, you'll you're going to be able to avoid having the Terra D filter apart in the middle of the season when it's super hot in the summer. And, the key is to keep it on schedule and to make sure that you have the filters clean. I prefer cleaning the cartridge filters first or the D filters first, and then vice versa. So I'll find my route and I'll make sure I tag every D filter, and I'll go through and clean all those, and then I'll go clean all the cartridge filters after that. And that way, for me, it seems like it speeds it up when you're just doing one type of filter during that 2-week period, and then the other 2-week period you're doing the other type of filter. It can get hectic because you're doing so many filters between during a 1-month period, but I find that much more effective than, say, doing 20 filters in March, 20 filters in April, 20 filters in May. For me, it's easier to do all of them in 1 month and knock them out, and that way it stays on schedule. And it does really help with the water quality, clarity, and chemical use when you have a clean filter going into the summer season. And then the last thing you can do to save time out there is make sure the customer's pump is running an appropriate amount of time to keep the water clear, algae-free, circulate the chemicals, and allow the automatic cleaner to activate and work to keep the pool clean. This sounds like something that should be a no-brainer and be said already, but in reality, it's a battle out there sometimes to make sure the customer's pool is running long enough for good water quality and clarity. So fight the customer on this, set the pumps to run if it needs to run. If it's a single speed pump, it needs to run 8 or 10 hours a day. Make sure it's running that way. For a VS pump, make sure you program it with a good medium speed so that it's running during those peak hours and it's running long enough to circulate the water, keep it clear, and of course activate the automatic cleaner, suction side cleaner on the route. Or if you have a pressure cleaner, make sure you have a time so that booster pump comes on and it's going to clean the pool. This is a key factor, and it's something that I think you can't ignore, because if the customer's runtime is not set properly, you'll spend more time out there trying to clean the pool, treat algae, all kinds of problems happen. So to prevent that, the easiest thing you can do is set the pool to run a proper amount of time out there to avoid these problems. All these things, of course, there's a lot more tips I can add here, but I'll stop here. There's more that I had on the list, and I'll probably cover that in another episode later in the future. But implementing these will save you minutes, half an hour a day, and then over the course of a week, you're going to save a tremendous amount of time. And over the course of a year, you're going to be given back sometimes a whole day or two worth of time that can be eaten up and wasted out there if you don't implement a system of saving time, not cutting corners on cleaning the pools or cutting corners on the service you provide, but kind of maximizing the time you have out there. Looking for other podcasts, of course, subscribing Monday through Friday to my YouTube channel. A podcast is there. I put a podcast there during the week. And if you go to my website, again, swimmingpoollearning.com, in the top banner, there's a podcast icon, and there'll be a drop-down menu with over 1,700 podcasts for you there. And if you're interested in the coaching program, again, you can learn more about that at poolguidecoaching.com. Thanks for listening to this podcast. Have a good rest of your week. God bless. This episode is brought to you by HASA, providing products that deliver clean, healthy water for every aspect of everyday life. The bottom feeder battery-powered vacuum system, portable, powerful, and only weighs 12 pounds. And Skimmer. Get Skimmer, America's #1 pool service software. Podcast listeners can try Skimmer for free at getskimmer.com/poolguy.